In a world like Naruto, we've been introduced to quite a few clans throughout the series. Some are more powerful than others. That's something we all can agree upon. But one thing we know for certain is that the Uchiha clan have gone down in history as one of the strongest, if not the strongest clan in the entire franchise. If we only consider shinobi, that is. Otsutsuki don't count. At the same time though, for as overpowered as the Uchiha clan are, I get the feeling sometimes fans don't truly appreciate just how utterly broken the Uchiha clan are. So in today's True Power series video, we're going to be looking at the collective of the Uchiha clan and break down why they should be regarded as not only the strongest shinobi clan in the ninja world, but also explain why an army of Uchiha led by the 7 strongest Uchiha to ever exist at the peaks of their power should be downright terrifying. Like I did in my video explaining why everyone should be afraid of how strong the car inner members are, we're going to be following a very similar format in this first Naruto based video like this, which for reference, whenever I do a Boruto video like the car video, I'll do a Naruto video in a very similar fashion. So just how big of a task is it for someone to take on the entire Uchiha clan, wipe all those members out, and then have to go into a 7 versus 1 battle against all 7 of the strongest Uchiha to ever live? Well, let's assume that we've custom built our mad ladder of the shinobi. They're super overpowered and they just pulled up on the entire Uchiha clan and they bodied them in the same way that Madara did the Shinobi Alliance. You'd have to have someone who's strong enough to overpower the insane fire release of the Uchiha clan and the ocular powers of the Sharingan, likely fighting staring at their feet the same way that Might Guy said that he trained himself to fight against the Sharingan, which on top of advanced Sharingan genjutsu, they can also use the Sharingan to copy your movements down to the jutsu you're using, plus they can gain precognition in order to predict your movements before you actually make them due to the Sharingan Aya Insight's insane powers. There's a reason why it was stated in Naruto chapter 257 that when you're facing a Sharingan user, the best option isn't to fight. The best option is to flee, especially if you're fighting alone. However, let's assume that this mad lad of a shinobi that we created bodies the entire Uchiha clan with no issues and is staring down the top 7 Uchiha and eating a bowl of ramen while he does so. So who exactly would he be facing? Well, he'd be facing Izuna Uchiha, the brother of Madara Uchiha, Shisui Uchiha, the prodigy feared for his body flicker speed, Fugaku Uchiha, the former leader of the clan who even Itachi regarded as being the toughest matchup for him in a 1 versus 1 battle setting, Itachi Uchiha himself, the man famous for massacring the Uchiha clan in one night, Obito Uchiha, the monster with the series' most broken jutsu ever, Kamui, which in this video we're going to assume he has both Mangekyou Sharingan. You also have Madara Uchiha, the man who casually used fire release that was so strong it took several high-level water release users to counter his attack. And for this video, we're also going to assume that this is going to be the 10 Tails version of Madara as well. And you have Sasuke Uchiha, the last full-blooded Uchiha alive in the series who has survived multiple battles with countless Otsutsuki clan members. Between these 7 users, you have 7 members who are exceptionally skilled with genjutsu, and that's even before we factor in the fact that they each have 7 Mangekyou Sharingan, and 2 of them have the Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, and those same 2 ninja also have the rinnegan that they naturally awakened themselves. You have to fight a 7 versus 1 battle where all 5 changes in chakra nature can be used against you by multiple people. Madara, Sasuke, and Obito can use all 5 changes in chakra nature. Shisui has fire release, wind release, and lightning release. Itachi has fire release, wind release, and water release, which means that you're not gonna get off easy even if you get away from the first 3, and even if you fight Izuna and Fugaku Uchiha, both of them have insane mastery of fire release, even though that's the only chakra nature they have. With the exception of Izuna, we also have genjutsu feats and statements from various source materials for each of these Uchiha that should make it an absolute terror to continue proceeding into any type of battle with them. Fugaku made his name in the 3rd Great Ninja War for just using genjutsu alone, to the point where he got the nickname Wicked Eye Fugaku, and enemy ninjas ran on sight of his Sharingan. The same Sharingan that during the Nine Tails attack he felt confident enough in his genjutsu that he could control the nine-tailed fox that was on a rampage and was about to rush to join Minato to take control of the Kyuubi before Danzo and the elders order him to stand down and oversee the evacuation of the citizens of Konoha, which we know this information based off of the first Itachi light novel, The Book of Daylight, where just his genjutsu alone was mentioned in the same breath as the power of Orochimaru and Minato, to the point where Danzo even referred to Fugaku as being a generational talent. Even the third Hokage didn't dispute this fact. In the Naruto Shippuden anime, his Mangekyou Sharingan genjutsu caught Itachi off guard and brought Itachi down to his knees in a cold sweat. Shisui Uchiha has the most broken genjutsu out this entire group because his Koto Matsukami can briefly place someone under a genjutsu where their free will is removed, or he can permanently take away their free will using the Koto Matsukami with this other eye, which means that Shisui says take a blade and cut your own throat, you're gonna take a blade and cut your own throat and think that it was your idea to do so. Itachi's genjutsu isn't one to be overlooked either. His Tsukiyomi is so broken that he can place a target into a genjutsu where for 72 hours, on the short end mind you, he can torture the person, and if he uses Tsukiyomi to the highest degree, Itachi can actually kill the person with the genjutsu by literally making the genjutsu so elaborate that the person trapped inside of it, their brain thinks that they die, which in turn makes the brain in the real life stop functioning in the real world, which forces the body to die, which I've covered in my video, How Itachi Killed His Lover, where he killed Izumi Uchiha in that same method, making her brain shut off after she lived 80 years as Itachi's wife, dying inside of Itachi's arms in the genjutsu. The only counter to this genjutsu are, one, you have to have a Mangekyou Sharingan to fight back against it, and according to Itachi in the Akatsuki Hiden novel, Evil Flowers in Full Bloom, a person with an extremely strong spirit that's rooted strongly in love can counter the genjutsu because Itachi's genjutsu destroys the spirit and the mind, but those with a strong spirit can actually reconnect the spirit that Tsukiyomi destroys, but the strength of the spirit has to be so insane in order to accomplish it. Making it even worse, Itachi can pump out the massive amount of chakra needed for Tsukiyomi in what is literally confirmed in the Itachi Book of Midnight novel as being faster than a picosecond. Obito's genjutsu was so broken that at the mere age of 14, he was able to place the full nine-tailed fox under a genjutsu, and as time went on, his genjutsu became so powerful that he literally placed a perfect jinchuriki under a long-term genjutsu, which speaks volumes to how skilled Obito's genjutsu is. Now, Madara's genjutsu is a lot crazier in the sense that it depends on which Madara we're talking about. So if we're talking about a live Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan Madara at the final valley, he can control the Nine Tails with ease. If we go to Madara as a Jinchuriki with the Rinne Sharingan, he's able to cast Infinite Tsukiyomi, which places the entire world under a genjutsu in only a matter of moments. On top of that, his Sharingan is advanced enough that he's the only Uchiha who's able to tell the difference between wood-released clones and the real Hashirama, and his skill with the Sharingan was enough that he was able to almost immediately break down whatever jutsu he saw, like when he broke down Sasuke's Rinnegan's Amane Teijikawa's range in only a matter of moments before he put the theory into test to make sure he was right. Then you have Sasuke Uchiha, who went from genjutsu strong enough to suppress the Nine Tails chakra inside of Naruto with only a 3-tomo Sharingan to Sasuke after the battle with Kaguya, placing all 9 Biju under a genjutsu with a single glance, which even made the Sage of Six Paths, a guy who's seen all types of crazy stuff in his lifetime, he was shocked at the other skill that Sasuke showed to Sasuke as an adult, placing Naruto under a genjutsu, while in the past that remained intact 20 years later, to the point where even after being told what happened, Naruto couldn't even remember meeting Boruto in the past, and Sasuke in the Sasuke Book of Sunrise novel was able to use his Sharingan to read an entire lifetimes of memories with only a single glance in the matter of seconds to process all the information. As you can see here, just off the genjutsu alone, these 7 Uchiha of this caliber is already a problem for you, but let's assume that you're genjutsu resistant, and we're gonna dive even deeper here. Let's look at each Uchiha's major skills and the information that we have to really get an appreciation for how busted these characters are, and due to how ungodly the Rinnegan is, we're gonna save Madara and Sasuke for last. We're just gonna assume that these guys are just chilling in the background right now. Obito Uchiha in this scenario, like stated before, is gonna gonna have both of his Sharingan, but we're gonna start him out with just his base Sharingan. Obito is a problem. 5 chakra natures of Jutsu to attack you with for starters. In only a short amount of training, Obito's power level jumped to a skill level where even at a short period of time, Minato was assured that he was fighting the real Madara Uchiha. As an adult, Obito easily took down the strongest members of Danzo's root organization, and he did so with no issues during the 5 Kage summit. Due to the operation that Madara performed on him, Obito's chakra reserves have been enhanced due to having white Zetsu material placed inside of his body and the Hashirama cells that he gets as well, which lets him shoot off several high-powered jutsu back-to-back without any type of stamina issues, as well as spam the Kamui jutsu. His taijutsu was enough that he briefly kept up with Kakashi in the War Arc, and still using his Kamui in conjunction with his other jutsu allowed him to fight and nearly capture 2 perfect Jinchuriki before Kakashi and Guy stepped in. And despite all of that, Obito still went on to fight all 4 of them, and he held his own. The enhanced chakra reserves allow him to use the Uchiha flame formation, which sees Obito slam his fists onto the ground to make a barrier of flames that will set the enemy on fire if they come into contact with it. The flames are strong enough that even the power of the 8 tails can be reflected back, which means that for whatever reason you manage to beast against the 7 Uchiha and drawing everybody into a 7 versus 1 battle, Obito can just summon this huge barrier, which should buy the Uchiha enough time to regroup and form a strategy, which with the likes of geniuses like Itachi and Madara and Sasuke, you're screwed if they ever come up with a plan. The enhanced chakra also allows him to spam the fire release bomb blast jutsu, which allows him to shoot off a huge spiral of fire, which Obito can combine with his Kamui to make the spiral into an overpowered whirlwind vortex of fire. Obito also has wood release, which allows him to make wood release projectiles as well as objects that if he wanted to, like say a wood dragon jutsu, he could, or he could use wood release to use the great tree spear jutsu, where Obito summons thick tree roots from the ground in order to crush the enemy that he's fighting, like he did when Ren Nohara died, and he killed all the Mist Shinobi in the rage afterwards, in that end result that had one of the darkest scenes in the entire manga, where blood was dripping all over the battlefield. On top of that, we haven't even touched on Obito's Kamui, which again, for this video, we're assuming he has both Kamui, which means that he should not only be able to make himself intangible for 5 minutes at a time, but given the fact that he's got both Sharingan right now, you could use headcanon to say that his Kamui might last for 10 minutes since he has both Sharingan, but he can also use Kamui to attack the enemy from a distance and Kamui away all of their weapons, their jutsu, and he can just even snipe off your head. Think of it like what Ishiki can do with his dojutsu, where he shrinks objects or he stores them into his Daikokuden dimension. That's what Obito has. Now, on top of that, 2 Sharingan also means that Obito would have access to his Susanoo, which means that even if you're fast enough to dodge his Kamui, just as Kakashi was able to infuse Kamui into chakra shurikens with a Susanoo that damage your body when they touch you, so too could Obito. And need I remind you, even Kage had a problem with that. For this video, since we gave him both Sharingan, we're not even going to mention Jubi Obito, whose power level jumps so high that he shoots up beyond that of even a live Sage Mode Hashirama. Now, Fugaku doesn't have much going for him outside of his Genjutsu, but anytime that Genjutsu has you in the same conversation as Minato, Orochimaru, and even being mentioned in the breath as the trio of the legendary Sannin, you're doing something right. There's a reason why even Itachi wasn't sure he could beat Fugaku in a 1 versus 1 setting. Even if we take Itachi versus KCM Naruto as Naruto was holding back and wasn't fighting seriously, Itachi was still fast enough to catch Killer Bee off guard and still kept up with the suppressed KCM Naruto, which both of those things are very impressive. Need I remind you, Killer Bee was tagging Sasuke after Sasuke got the Mangekyou Sharingan, so that's no small feat right there. And that's not to say that Fugaku is like, say, at healthy Itachi's level or Edo Itachi's level, because Itachi did get stronger after joining the Akatsuki, but it's worth noting that Fugaku at one point was still on par with Itachi, and Itachi, when he slaughtered the clan, was one of the strongest people inside of Konoha. Izuna is another Uchiha we don't know a lot about, including his Mangekyou Sharingan abilities, but we do know that for a time, he was considered to be Madara's equal in power, according to the manga, until Madara gained the Eternal Mangekyou Sharingan. Warring States era Mangekyou Sharingan Madara is nothing to sneeze at either. Being the equal to somebody who as a child was capable of killing fully grown Senju Clan members without a Sharingan at that, is very impressive, and even when Madara began to pull ahead of him, he was still strong enough to fight and hold his own, and arguably hold an advantage over Tobirama Senju. Much like the others we mentioned here, he can also use a Susanoo. Then we also have Shisui Uchiha, whose Mangekyou Sharingan powers we already went over, but despite the memes that Danzo plucked out his eye, therefore he should be Danzo level, it's worth noting that the Itachi Book of Midnight novel makes it clear that Shisui did get poisoned by Danzo before Danzo even attempted such a thing. Shisui's body flicker ain't anything to take lightly either. There's a reason why his body flicker is so feared. So we already know body flicker is just high speed movement, but what makes Shisui's body flicker so dangerous? Well, it's actually a lot. So his body flicker was unmatched for a reason, because we know he can move so fast that sensory ninjas can't even detect him due to the sheer speed he's moving at, and he moves so fast that his body flicker left tangible after images that could fight you afterwards, and that's very fast, to the point where people could think that Shisui was using a shadow clone because the body flicker after images were landing attacks on them. But nope, Shisui was just moving that fast, which when you look at how fast someone has to move to make a after image, that's pretty damn fast. Now consider that after image can land attacks on you. Now, when you consider the Book of Itachi Midnight novel makes it clear that he was above Itachi in power up until the moment where Itachi finally beat them in a training match. Days before Itachi would awaken the Mangekyou, you can see how combining Shisui's taijutsu with a body flicker that fast is absolutely insane. And if we take the Ninja Escapades OVA that Masashi Kishimoto wrote and produced, Shisui's Susanoo can also shoot off projectiles at the enemy. Now Itachi, on the other hand, like we previously mentioned, is pretty damn strong, from being an Edo Tensei who wasn't at full power, mind you, being able to catch Killer Bee off guard, to keeping up with the suppressed KCM Naruto, to easily knocking back an annoyed Sasuke who had EMS Sharingan activated. He knocked back his Susanoo arm, to having the intelligence to immediately break down Nagato's rinnegan weaknesses in only a few moments. Itachi's an absolute monster. The only real drawback right here is that Itachi's body stamina does give out pretty quickly due to his illness, but let's assume he's fully healthy here. We've got a problem. So forget the Tsukiyomi that can potentially kill you. Just his Amaterasu is a problem, because water release can't put out Amaterasu. If you don't have the Karma Seal, then the only way you can get around it is to be skilled in sealing jutsu, or just wait for the flames to burn out 7 days later. But against 7 highly skilled Uchiha, are you really gonna survive 7 days and 7 nights? I strongly doubt it. Now Itachi's crows make him a huge devil to deal with, and we've seen this multiple times in the series, how Itachi uses those crows that cut down on the amount of chakra he uses for his substitution jutsu, because he's using a living object, but he also uses his shadow clones to blow up in front of his enemy. Itachi's hand seal speed is one of the fastest that we've ever seen in the series, to a point where it's ungodly how fast he weaves hand signs. Even heavy Sasuke was thrown off guard by how quickly Itachi was weaving hand signs mid-fight for a shadow clone when they fought. And the fire release Phoenix Flower jutsu is often combined with shuriken, so right after you get hit by the fireball jutsu attack, the shuriken tear up your body as well. Just with throwing kunai, Itachi is skilled enough with this kunai, he can hit targets that should be impossible for normal people, because he times the direction of its kunai to hit one another at the precise moment that changes their trajectory, which means that you can run, but you can't hide from Itachi's kunai. And he's also able to make water release strong enough to push back people like Sage Mode Kabuto, and he can weave hand signs for the Water Fang Bullet Jutsu that are so fast that when the tendrils of water shoot up from the surface to tear through your body, you won't be able to see the hand seals coming, let alone see the attack coming, which is why Kakashi was almost hit by it in part 1 of the series, where Kakashi only survived the water attack because he was weaving the hand signs for a water wall jutsu that he was already in the process of preparing. And it was only after the fact that he realized that Itachi, when he drew the shuriken, had already weaved the hand signs for the jutsu. He can also use water release to cover the ground as a syrup, the same way that Izumo did against Kakuzu, which essentially means if you get caught in it, you're stuck standing still. Now his Susanoo's downright broken to the point where it's disgusting. So on top of being able to shoot out Magatama, he's also able to use the Tosca Blade and the Yatamira. So the Tosca Blade seals anything that it touches, and the Yatamira can deflect all jutsu that use the 5 changes in chakra nature, which essentially means that if the Uchiha aren't inside of Obito's flame barrier, then they can use Itachi's Yata Mirror to hide behind. And if you don't have true seeking orbs, you're not breaking through that Yata Mirror either. Now, if you somehow deal with those guys, you now have 2 rinnegan users to fight against who just happen to be the 2 strongest shinobi to have ever possessed the rinnegan. Madara can use all 6 basic rinnegan jutsu, as can Sasuke. The human path allows him to rip out the soul of whoever he touches. The Deva path allows him to pull the target close to him or push the target away, along with whatever jutsu that is shot at him. The Ashra path allows his body to turn into weapons, and the animal path allows him to summon multiple animal summons onto the battlefield at once, including one that can hide Madara and the summoning animal from plain sight. The Preta path lets him absorb jutsu, and it even absorbs nature energy. The Naraka path allows him to summon the King of Hell to either do repairs on the battlefield or rip out the tongues of whoever it catches. If Madara wanted to, he could just take the bodies of the other dead Uchiha and use them as his own 6 paths of pain, which makes it another 7 versus 1 battle. However, that's not all right here. There's a reason why Madara is so broken that only Hashirama ever stood a chance of going up against him. So Madara can also control and summon the 9 tails to the battlefield to fight on his behalf, which means on top of fighting all the Uchiha, you also have the literal strongest tailed beast shooting Biju Dama at you that you have to try to contend with. And if you piss Madara off, he can just summon a giant meteor to drop down onto the battlefield to kill you, or he can just trap you in a man-made meteor via the Chibaku Tensei and just crush you to death. As a 10-tailed Jinchuriki, he also has true seeking orbs that can wipe you out of existence. His durability is enough to survive being hit by the strongest of the attacks by the 8 inner gates, and his speed is enough that he casually countered the speed of the flying Raijin. He also uses the nature energy to amp up his attacks, on top of being able to access wood release attacks as well. Even with this basic Mangekyou Sharingan powers, Madara Susanoo was enough to casually block Naruto's super giant Rasengan. He's one of the few ninja who can make one-handed hand seals, which also makes him very deadly in battle. Just his casual usage of the majestic flame destroyer jutsu was so overpowered that it took several water release attacks to stalemate the flames of sea that Madara shot out, which, as a reference, this is the very first attack he shoots out in the manga when he fights against the Alliance. Madara was just testing out his body when he did so, and the attack was on this wide scale of a range, even though Madara was playing around. If we consider the Ninja Escapades OVA, then Madara's Mangekyou Sharingan power allows him to reverse the events of what just happened back in time a few moments ago, very similar to how in Eden Zero, Rebecca can do that with her Cat Leaper, where she can get hit by an attack and then go back in time a few moments ago, or very similar to how Urushiki's Rinnegan power allows him to go forward into the future a few seconds to see attacks before they happen, then come back into the present and dodge the attacks accordingly. However, his Rinnegan powers are the true problem here, and I'm not even referring to the basic 6-pass Rinnegan powers that every Rinnegan user has access to. So his Limbo clones are just downright broken. Madara with both Rinnegan can make 6 Limbo clones that are impossible to be seen without a Rinnegan, or they can't be sensed without 6-pass Sage mode. They have the benefit of only being able to be harmed unless the person has 6-pass chakra. The only real drawbacks is that there's an unknown time limit for how long Madara can use Limbo clones, but given how hacks it is, you don't need a lot of time because of no 6-pass chakra, no 6-pass Sage mode, or no Rinnegan means you don't stand a chance anyway. If Madara wanted to, he could just use the Storm Release Light Flame Jutsu and shoot out a beam of light at light speed, and you would not know you were hit until he blew off your head. If he's fighting with this fan, Madara can just nullify the attack by turning incoming chakra-based attacks into wind release, which then means he can shoot it back at the enemy at point-blank range. On top of that, again, he's also got wood release, which means he can summon a giant force that shoots out pollen that knocks out whoever inhales the pollen. Then, on top of that, we also have Prime Sasuke Uchiha, who, if we consider the information in the light novels, has begun experimenting with his Rinnegan to the point where he's able to recreate Kekkei Genkai-based jutsu that the Sharingan typically cannot copy, and it's all because of his Rinnegan, which I've covered in my video breaking down Sasuke's Ice Release, as well as another video explaining the strongest Ice Release jutsu Sasuke copied. Now, on top of that, as an adult, he's gone from being able to use the Mangekyou a couple of times, alongside using a handful of jutsu before he needed to recharge his rinnegan 3 separate times during the war arc where he got the rinnegan, to being in possession of enough chakra that at one point he spammed a Mangekyou 8 times in one fight after opening up a portal to an Sasuke dimension that requires more chakra than 1/3 of Naruto's 6-pass chakra mode in order to open up. And we know that the more people he takes through the portal, the more chakra it consumes, because Sasuke directly stated that there is a limit to how many people he could take with him when the Kage went to rescue Naruto. And Sasuke, upon opening up a portal and using Mangekyou 8 times, also used a handful of jutsu. So his reserves have gone up. Now, he also has the basic Chidori, which has the high-speed strike with the lightning release meant to assassinate the people that he jabs with it. But he's also got 5 different variations of the Chidori, from the Chidori Senbon strikes to the actual spears that he can use and extend. The Mangekyou allows him to not only swap places with objects, but also swap out literal jutsu and swap out objects, and even forcibly make people change position on the battlefield like he did against Kaguya, which means that he can just swap you out of your position with some random object that is right in front of Itachi's Tosca blade that is coming towards you, and it'll seal you away faster than Hinata can say Naruto-kun on their wedding night. His Blaze Release Jutsu also has multiple variations, which I've covered in my every Blaze Release Jutsu ever video, where we break down the mythology behind Blaze Release and how it correlates with the many different variations of the jutsu that Sasuke has, which I recommend checking out if you're into Japanese mythology as well as Asian mythology as well. Now, Sasuke, as previously mentioned, also has access to the basic 6 rinnegan powers that every rinnegan user has access to, which means that on top of worrying about Madara spamming the jutsu, you also have Sasuke spamming it as well. If Madara decides to summon the Nine Tails, Sasuke or Madara can just wrap their Susanoo around the Nine Tails, and if they do that, it makes your fight a living nightmare. His Susanoo can also shoot off arrows that can pierce your body as well, and if you really piss Sasuke off, or if you piss Madara off, they can just whip out a perfect Susanoo and force you to fight against 2 perfect Susanoos that can casually destroy entire mountain ranges with a single attack. If Sasuke takes advantage of the Uchiha shooting off various levels of fire release, he can also just sit back until the atmosphere gets hot enough and casually summon Kirin to shoot down a lightning bolt while you struggle to fight the other Uchiha. However, let's say you're this giant mad lad who manages to kill all the Uchiha. Good job, fam. You've done the impossible, but now you gotta do it again, because they can all use the Izanagi to bring themselves back from death, but that's only if they had their Sharingan cut on and they weave the hand signs. And then you also have somebody like Itachi who can just bite the bullet afterwards and place you into Izanami, which potentially places you inside of a never-ending loop where you'll be stuck in until you can come to peace with your situation. But because you're stuck inside of the Izanami, they can just walk up and cut your head off. In short, fighting the entire Uchiha clan is already a tall task, which is why even for someone as strong as Itachi and Obito were, they did the smart thing and they picked off the Uchiha a few people at a time over the course of a night. If you've got the balls to fight the 7 strongest Uchiha and even avoid looking into the eyes like Might Guy does so as to avoid genjutsu, it's still a very tough battle. When you consider all this, the list of the people strong enough to take on all 7 Uchiha at the same time is a very short list. But I want to turn it over to you guys. Who are the ninja or the Sasuke strong enough to take on all 7 Uchiha clan members we just mentioned here in a 7 versus 1 battle? While you think that over, consider watching these other videos you see on the screen right now.